Hello everyone, Leah C here. I'm here with PIEGUYRULZ, and we're going to be talking about the new Steven Universe episode, What's Your Problem?
So, what is your problem?
I don't know. Did you have any problems with the episode, going off of the title?
Not not really. I have to say we didn't say it in the first part, which by the way, if you want to see the first episode of The Bomb, you want to see us discuss it. Now we're only falling apart. That is over on my channel. I'm sure you'll link it. But I have to say, like, the titles for all of these episodes, like the ones that have been revealed and everything, really great titles.
Oh yeah, I really like how especially the titles tie into other things that have been happening in the show, and especially like their parallels to other episodes, especially in the upcoming episodes, like how the answer and the question are related. I really like the titles that they've been choosing.
Yeah, and what's your problem seems like watching the last episode, you think it's going to be Ruby asks it to Sapphire, or maybe Sapphire asks it to Ruby, but that's not at all the case.
Nope. It ends up being that Amethyst and Steven are both essentially asking each other that question, which is really awesome because you think it's going to be about one character specifically, and it ends up being about two characters, and two characters that you're not expecting at that.
So how do you feel about this episode in general?
I mean, I think it was good. I don't really have much to say about it because it's the simple same Steven and Amethyst dynamic that we've been seeing throughout the entire show, where Amethyst is the one who's trying to be the most supportive for Steven and the most put together for Steven, because it seems like she has more of his well-being on her mind than any of the other gems do. And not to say that the other gems don't care about Steven, because they do, but it just seems like they're more caught up in their own problems than they are busy thinking about how Steven is feeling about the whole situation.
I mean, it is interesting because of all of the three crystal gems aside from Steven and Peridot. Sorry, Peridot. Actually, including Peridot. Fine, include Peridot. The one whose arc seems to have been like the most concluded was Amethyst. Like Garnet's arc. Garnet's arc is like the weirdest of all of them because it's not really an arc. Her arc is more helping Steven become a leader. Pearl's arc, she's made great strides, but we haven't really kind of gotten that final confirmation, you know, that like she's there yet. She's doing great work out there, but she's still struggling with her issues. But Amethyst, you know, after Beta and Earthlings, after fusing with Steven, and then after even kind of solidified by Tiger Philanthropist.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, her self-esteem issues are kind of gone. Not gone, but she's gotten over the bulk of them. She's confident in who she is. She likes who she is. She's happy with who she is. And she's happy with her relationship with Steven. And so of all the characters, it kind of makes sense that she is being the most mature about this because in the end, she's grown the most in the entire series, I think.
She really has too, especially she has grown a lot with her issues, and she's, especially at the end of the episode 2, I think is even more concluding upon one of her character arcs, in that she doesn't want her or Rose's past rather to define her, and she doesn't want the gem history in the past to define her. Like, oh well, I don't care. I mean, obviously I still think she cares a little bit that she's defective, but she's kind of pushing that past her, like, well, I don't care what the gems think, I'm fine the way that I am. I don't care if I'm not up to gem standards because the gem standards don't really apply to me, type of a thing.
Yeah, and I mean, of all the characters, of course, you look at Garnet and Pearl's relationship with Steven, and they're definitely more like parent figures. But Amethyst has always been Steven's sister in terms of she's made on Earth. Rose, her relationship with Rose is the closest thing that Rose had to a child before Steven, aside from that one time she babysitted Sour Cream.
Yeah.
You know, so it kind of makes sense that Amethyst and Steven are like, Amethyst is looking out for Steven first and foremost because she is like his sister, and I think that her reaction to Rose is not like all that dissimilar to how Steven is starting to react, in that like ultimately I guess Amethyst doesn't want it to affect her, and to Steven it's not really affecting him because, like I said in the last discussion, like he never knew his mom anyway, so it's just more of getting the picture. Like it's not this big reveal. Really thinking about it, it does matter more to the characters that knew Rose Quartz for years and years and fought for her. Whereas even though Amethyst knew Rose, and even though Amethyst was kind of like almost a child to Rose, it's not like she knew Rose as deeply as the rest of the characters did. So it kind of makes sense why this wouldn't affect her as much, or like she'd want it to not affect her as much. Of course, it still does affect her.
Exactly, and she also had a similar relationship with Rose that I imagine Steven would if she was still around. Like you said, she was like her child almost, and that the other gems too, especially with Garnet was always looking to her for guidance and things like that. And not to say that Amethyst wasn't, but I think they had a much different dynamic that, of course, they're going to have much deeper reactions depending on what their relationship was. So I think that's definitely reflected in Amethyst's reaction to it. And of course, Amethyst also wasn't involved in the war or anything like that. So I think that the fact that she also wasn't involved in the war definitely takes away from a deeper reaction that she would have had if she was involved with it.
I mean, I think this episode, like, I do deeply respect what this episode is going for. I don't know. This is one of those weird, like, bridging episodes where I really don't know how I feel about it. I think I like it. I'm pretty sure I like it. But in terms of what it's going for is it's trying to kind of take a step back and take a look at how Steven feels, which is something that could have very easily have been glossed over in another storyline.
Exactly.
Right? Like, to take a step back and for someone to ask Steven, hey, Steven, how are you feeling about what's going on? And to have this really slow and I think like quite, I guess, like introspective scene just at the pizza joint, just talking about what happened, not worrying about the immediate conflict of Ruby and Sapphire fighting, not worrying about like the grand implications of what this means or anything else, but just the small scale of, Steven, how are you feeling? I think that that's really beautiful in a way. I think that in a story that's often swept up in like big pictures and just kind of small things that like don't matter, to focus on how Steven is feeling is really good. I think that this episode did a really good job at that.
It really did, and the thing, too, is that they normally try and skip or gloss over what Steven is feeling in the past with a lot of the situations. We kind of haven't gotten it, because it's just thing after thing with big plot point after big plot point just keeps on happening like a barrage, and we don't really see the gems take the time to ask how Steven is going. It's mostly Steven making sure that the gems are okay, and I really do like that they took the time to have an episode where this happens, and I think Amethyst being the person also makes the most sense, but at the same time, I'm glad that the show writers decided not to gloss over it, because it would have been very, very easy for them to have moved on to the next plot point, instead of just actually taking an episode and putting it aside, instead of going directly right to Ruby and glossing over him. So I'm glad that they put this episode in between.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I like this episode. I do. I don't think it's as good as the previous episode. I don't think it's an episode that is even really going to be that remembered in the grand scheme of things, but I do think it is an important episode to have, and I do think things they did well. Like, there was a little action scene in there with Amethyst and in the helicopter.
Yeah.
Just to insert some action into it, so it's not just all talky stuff. And I do like that it was kind of a twist in a way, in that like it's very similar to Crack the Whip. Crack the Whip being the episode where Jasper emerges from the water and fights Amethyst and kicks Amethyst's butt, and then Stevonnie goes and kicks Jasper's butt, where that episode was Amethyst trying to tell Steven and Connie, hey, relax, have fun, don't think about the impending Jasper threat or getting better, and then Amethyst pays the price for it. But this time it wasn't Amethyst trying to tell Steven to like not do something he should be doing. It was just Amethyst trying to cheer him up.
Exactly, especially, and it was such a... And you could like cut the tension with the knife. That's how bad it was. Like, he has all of this weight on his shoulders. He has Pearl, who hasn't been able to talk about this for like 5,000 years, first off, and like she probably wants to talk about it. And then he has Sapphire, who's crying her eye out, like, so her singular eye.
Yep.
And then he has Amethyst, who's also upset about it, but Amethyst is trying to stay strong for him, and he notices this and he wants to help fix her problems with it, but he's not taking the time to think about himself. And I really do like how that was how it ended. There wasn't necessarily any like negative connotation to it. It was just brother and sister basically talking about their problems on it, and I think that was a really sweet ending that they gave.
Yeah, and I think it's also like, I guess the thing about this episode is that Steven does not have a big reaction, and it's like, it's realistic, it's interesting, I think, but because Steven doesn't have a big, like, if Steven was like super mad about his mom, or if Steven was like adamantly defending her or something like that, I think that would make this episode a lot more memorable, and I think that it would make this episode stick out. But I think in the overall narrative they're trying to tell, Steven having a much more, I guess, kind of nuanced and like methodically slow reaction to all of this.
Right, and it makes sense too.
Yeah, and it might play off better in the bigger scheme of things.
I think it will too, especially since I think he's still trying to decide. Like I do like how he mentioned he knows his mom was a liar, but he also mentioned when he was talking about it that, I mean, he basically referred to her as being morally great character, which she is, and I'm glad that he recognizes that, and I'm glad that he said that out loud, and that he said it to Amethyst too.
And the show recognizes that.
Exactly.
Like I think a fear was that Rose, like, we're supposed to think X, Y, or Z thing about Rose. And I mean, it's always kind of been that Rose has been gray. And if you pay attention, there are hints here and there that the characters themselves even think that at times. But to have basically Steven point blank point out, like, yeah, she did some good things, did some bad things. It's good to see the show isn't like trying to idolize her, but making a mistake at it, or like trying to demonize her. And it's good to kind of have that out in the open of this is what the show thinks of the character. And this is how she's meant to be portrayed.
Exactly, especially I think it's good to have some confirmation as well, because you're always going to have the people who are like, Rose is awful, and then you're always going to have the people that Rose is the best person, and then the show is basically having confirmation like, well, she wasn't really either. She did some good things, she did some bad things, and she wasn't either strictly a good person or strictly a bad person. And like you said, I think it's good that there's confirmation on the show's end, and they aren't trying to, because I know a lot of people from yesterday's episode, there was a lot of backlash on saying that it was cheaply done last episode, because people were saying that we're supposed to go back to seeing Rose as this perfect person. And personally, I disagree with that. Yeah, no, there was actually backlash on people saying about this. I was reading on Tumblr, like the Tumblr posts, and people were like, oh, they're trying to make Rose a perfect person again. I'm like, no, that's not at all what they were trying to do.
They were just, I mean, I think if anything, last episode, it's humanizing her. That's all it's doing. It's showing her beautiful side after we saw maybe some of her worst side. But it's trying to show us that her motivations were never, I don't know. I think that's a little silly, but
that her motivations weren't perfect for doing so, basically.
Mm-hmm. Can we talk about the very beginning of the episode a little bit?
We're with Pearl and Sapphire? Or before that?
That part, yeah, like, I mean, I get why. Okay, you go.
I thought it was cute, but at the same time, I think it was a bit overreactive. And like, I liked. Okay, so here's how I feel. I like how Pearl at first was trying very hard to step up to bat and be like, hey, listen, I'm gonna try and fix this because I kind of blame myself a little bit for this entire situation and encouraging Rose. So I'm gonna be like the big gem here and try and make Sapphire feel better, because it's technically my fault, or partially my fault, that Garnet split up. And I like how she was trying to do it and how she slowly fell apart because she was realizing that she was also not prepared for it. But then, like, and I loved that. I was laughing. Like, I was dying, but it was just like, I think they went a little bit too far with it, and I think they were trying to do that in emphasis for the end of the episode with Steven saying that Amethyst was the most mature, but I feel like they didn't need to put the emphasis on that. That was my personal opinion. What was yours?
I mean, like, I get why Sapphire's upset. It totally makes sense. This is a very important person to her. But like, all this talk of like Garnet will never exist again, like as if they're never gonna see Ruby again. It's like, guys, you spent maybe like 10 minutes away from her. I really don't think that she's like in that time decided she never wants to see Sapphire ever again.
No.
That seems to be just over dramatic. Like I'm I don't know. Bust out the My Chemical Romance shirts, because
gosh, yes, the emo hair, get the red streak in it.
I mean, I felt like it was just a little overplayed for drama, when being a little more subtle would have sold it just as well, would have sold it better. I think
they were trying to be funny about it too, which it was funny before it got like too overwhelming, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, like, yeah, I loved that Pearl tried to step up to bat. Like, that was really cool, and okay, it makes sense. And it was kind of funny because the last shot of them crying was, I think like comedically overdone, like intentionally. But I don't know. I just feel like it's like, oh no, are we gonna go back into that area of like overly dramatizing everything, where like you guys had one conversation? I don't know why this show tries to like, hype up every like I don't know. The show acts as if like one conversation is just like the end of everything.
Oh no, I yelled at Ruby for like 2 seconds. Now she's gonna divorce me. Like that was like the thought process.
Ruby was more hurt when we saw her, and even her note was just kind of like, I just need some space. It wasn't like, I'm never seeing you again. Yes. And apparently she is going to go hang out with Greg, which I think is going to be a very interesting character dynamic.
Oh yeah, I'm wondering too, because back in Keystone Motel, it's implied that Greg has dealt with both Ruby and Sapphire by themselves alone. So I'm wondering what type of situation led to that and what exactly happened. Ruby probably set a few things on fire because Greg did not seem happy to see them split apart. He was just like, oh no, not these two again.
Yeah, Greg, I don't think leaving the car wash was the best idea. I think staying close to like the large supply of hoses is a very good thing.
Put Ruby through the car wash when she starts having one of her meltdowns. You just have a bunch of steam coming out.
Oh goodness.
Oh my gosh, that'd be so funny though. At least you'd know where she was. Like, you just see the giant smoke signs coming from the temple from where the car wash is. Oh, we found Ruby.
Also, I love like the serious implication that Ruby apparently went underwater, as if that's something that like the fire elemental character would do. Like, I know she can go underwater before everyone's upset. I know she can be underwater like in Keystone, but like I don't think she'd want to go like live underwater like Lapis. Like I don't know why I don't know.
Oh my gosh, no, it's just funny that they're like, oh, and then Amethyst not taking it seriously, like, oh, she's gonna be inside this shell. Oh, that was the other thing that made me laugh. When Amethyst shapeshifted real small, and she had just like her arms on the side of the gemstone.
Yes, that was like really a neat. Funny. Yeah, it's a neat little rule that like they can't. I mean, we already know that they can't like change their gemstone, but like to see it in such an exaggerated way. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah, that was really funny. I think that and then the crying part were both funny. I'm still not sure how I feel about the crying with Pearl and Sapphire, though.
What do you think the cowboy stuff is amounting to?
I mean, can I... I'm trying to think of how to word this. I think that Sapphire is gonna be... I'm gonna be over dramatic and run away, and then I'm just gonna be. Yeah, Greg is gonna teach her how to play the harmonica or something, and she's just gonna go around in like the desert playing her harmonica, being like, my girlfriend broke up with me, but not really, type of a thing.
So basically, she's gonna be a no homeboy.
Oh my gosh, yeah, exactly. She's gonna exactly be a no homeboy. It wouldn't surprise me if they referenced that either.
She's just gonna start just like literally singing on the run. Like, sorry guys, we couldn't give you a new song, but here's a new character singing an old song. Is that enough?
We got some budget cuts, sorry Rebecca, but we're gonna need to reuse some old assets here.
Okay, worst possible place to take this arc is that like I don't even want to say this. I would really I'd love to see Ruby and Greg like hit the town, all right? Like they're trolling for babes. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
That's what
This is why Cartoon Network hasn't leaked anything.
Oh no! They're still threatening to ban the episodes.
They're gonna copyright strike me for this video because you hit the nail on the head. Oh no, they know too much.
Oh goodness! But yeah, I don't know. The cowboy stuff, like I think it's a good tease because just like whatever it is, it's just gonna be like. Okay, I don't know. Maybe Ruby and Greg were in like a southwestern band or something at some point.
I'm gonna laugh if they're like, oh, let's just go at, like around Beach City or wherever the heck they are. I don't know where there is a desert around them, and they're just gonna tour around and play. And Greg's like, yeah, I'm 100% okay with this. I can live out my dream of being a rock star again.
I don't know. Maybe Ruby and Greg had a very special connection over like an old Western serial. Like his relationship with all the gems is just in relation to what TV show he can watch with them. Oh
my gosh, yeah. They watch like this old Western TV show together. They binge it. Maybe that's what they do. Maybe they binge it and they're like in Greg's storage unit watching like Little Cowboy or something instead of Little Butler.
Little Butler Goes West.
Oh my god, that's the special. They just watched that on repeat for like 24 days while Ruby is just crying and she has a box of tissues next to her. And Greg's just like, do you think she broke up with you? She's just like, she left me. Oh my gosh.
So I guess just like, I am a little worried based upon like the beginning of this episode, how much crying and like just how upset they were, and I don't know. I'm just a little worried about how they're gonna play this whole Ruby and Sapphire thing out. I really like. It would be really kind of stupid and ridiculous if Ruby was like, "I'm moving on," or like something. Like I don't know. I'm scared.
I feel like she's gonna. And here's the thing. I think Ruby's impulsive, and I think that's one of her biggest personality flaws is that she's very impulsive, so she acts strictly on her emotions. And I think that if she does decide to strike off on her own, she's gonna do it for like maybe half an episode and then realize like, I need Sapphire, I can't do this type of a thing, because Sapphire, I would say, is probably the more mature one out of the both of them, or she's the one who has the most composition over her emotions, basically. And I think that if Ruby does strike out on her own, it's not going to be for an entire episode. At least I hope it's not going to be.
And I'm glad that we're not at least stuck with one character for this whole thing. I'm glad we are going to get to see Ruby's perspective, and we're going to get to see Sapphire's perspective. And I am excited. It is genuinely a rare occasion that we get to really have like full episodes where Ruby and Sapphire are Ruby and Sapphire.
Exactly. And this is definitely like the biggest opportunity that they do have in order to develop these characters, because I feel like after this, their relationship is going to be stronger. And this is probably one of the biggest, I'm not going to say the last one, but one of the biggest last hurdles that they're going to need to overcome that's going to have to split them up as Garnet. So
are you telling me you think they're going to get back together as Garnet by the end of this arc? Because I don't know about that one.
I think relationship wise they'll be back together. I don't know if they'll fuse again. I feel like they might fuse in the later episodes because of what we know is coming up, just because they need to, but I think they might want to spend some time apart from each other, and I hope that they're going to spend some time apart from each other.
And that makes sense. I mean, okay, like, generally people don't really like to bring this up, but I will say there is like a certain unfortunate implication with Garnet and just kind of like being a permanent fusion, in that like, if you were to take it and bring it back to a real world allegory, like, if you've literally become your relationship, it might be time to take a little step back.
Exactly.
And so I think just like exploring this and exploring maybe having the characters develop a little on their own before coming back to be Garnet, I think would be a really good thing. And I'm not saying that Garnet is like a problem in general. I'm just saying that if you kind of like wanna draw that parallel, I think that there is like a little weirdness in literally always being a fusion. But if they can take a step back, have both the characters develop a little and kind of show that they are still their own people, even if they are mostly their relationship, I think that can maybe alleviate a little bit of that.
Exactly, especially since in order for them, like, Garnet has a lot of character development, but I think the problem with Garnet specifically in these most recent episodes is that she's too busy trying to fix herself as the fusion and as the relationship, where she's not necessarily taking a break back and letting her counterparts figure it out, because I don't think that it's Garnet herself that's having a problem. I think it's both of her parts conflicting with different feelings and different thoughts, and that's the reason why she's had such a problem, and that's why they need to look back and fix themselves at like the fundamental basic level before moving on to Garnet herself.
And I would say, I guess Garnet, it is kind of the point where Garnet needs something more to do in the show, because her initial role was to be the stoic one, to be the leader, and to kind of like mentor Steven, basically. But as we saw in Pool Hopping, it's not like Steven has nothing left to learn. Of course, he still has a lot to learn. But at this point, he kind of is like the leader of the Crystal Gems. He's making decisions. We know, technically speaking, he is the most he has the most potential to be the most powerful. He's grown so much. Not that he doesn't need Garnet, but that Garnet's role as like that lead or mentor figure has kind of like gone away. And then without that, to Steven, what is really her role on the show going forward?
You have a strong point there. I feel like what they're going to try doing is they're eventually going to try and balance all the characters out to the point where not just strictly one of them has the leader role. I feel like Steven's still going to be a leader in the way, but I think that they're going to try balancing it out maybe, because like you said, Garnet at this point, especially since Steven's basically fixing Garnet's problems right now by getting them back together. She doesn't really have like a place anymore other than telling them what her predictions are and other than being the brawn of the team. So they got to do something with her, but I feel like they're going in the direction that, oh, all of you guys have your parts and like you fight for yourself, like we're still a team and everything, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we have a leader.
Yeah, and I think maybe a big part of this is the like Garnet's secret arc that we never knew was happening, but maybe it is just like Garnet's place has been the leader, but like at this point, I mean, we know a war is coming back, but like she needs to find her place when there isn't a war. She needs to figure out what her role is, where she is and what she does other than just being a relationship. And I don't know, I think that might be a part of this, like what this whole week is kind of showing, and I think that might be a part of where her character goes from here. What does she have going aside from being a fusion? What does she want? What does she need? What is she going to do?
Exactly, and I feel like that's also a part of the reason why she feels lost, because I don't think that she feels fit to be leader at this point either, and I think that's definitely causing a lot of her inner turmoil, and I just don't think that she knows where she belongs, if that makes any sense.
It totally does. I mean, we know that she feels that even her future vision just doesn't work right anymore, and she can't, without that, it's like, what is she? And I mean, she's a strong, amazing character, but she needs, I don't know. I think the show and the people making the show know that there's something that they should do with Garnet and that they're working towards it. I think that this whole week is about Garnet, even though Garnet's probably going to have the least screen time that she's ever had or whatever.
Oh yeah, the only time we're probably going to see her in this arc is when she's fighting, guaranteed. At least I hope anyways, because they really do need to work on Ruby and Sapphire. I'm trying to think. So, what was your favorite part of the episode that you saw?
I liked the conversation that Amethyst and Steven had at the pizza place. I mean, I like their other conversation on the beach, but I love how the episode really does take a turn right there, because it's kind of like in Mindful Education where we learn that the episode isn't really about Connie's problems. It's actually about what Steven's been harboring. The episode has this nice turn where it goes from just being, oh, here's a fun goof around episode to like, wow, we're going to talk about this. Yeah, what about you?
Oh, yeah, it definitely took a direction that I wasn't expecting it to head in. Like, I didn't expect Amethyst to be talking about her feelings or even hinting at her feelings. Like, that caught me really off guard. I did expect Steven to be somewhat showing his emotions on the subject while he was looking for her, just because Amethyst is someone who has always been interested in pushing Steven to see how he's feeling. She's always the one who's looking out for him the most. So I was expecting that, but I definitely was not expecting Amethyst to start being really upset over what happened, and like, she has every right to be upset. I just wasn't expecting her to be expressing it in this episode.
Isn't it crazy though that like Steven is the least emotional of the gems in this episode?
Oh yeah, and he, like, oh my gosh, like, he should be feeling the most out of anybody. Like, Pearl's been she's had thousands of years to think about this, so like, she's obviously, yes, she's emotional that people now know.
But she couldn't talk to anyone. She couldn't, like, how just harboring that information without being able to talk to anyone is awful. I don't know. Yeah. I think it makes sense that Steven is the least emotional about this in a way.
Oh yeah, I mean, it does make sense, especially from like a shock perspective as well, but like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, yeah, I like this episode. I think it was good and enjoyable. Like I said, I don't think it's the flashiest episode. I don't think it's like, oh man, I can't wait to go rewatch What's Your Problem? But it's definitely not an episode that I'd ever want to skip, and I think it is going to be it's important in a very low-key way.
Exactly. Like, I mean, I'll probably go back and watch it, but I'll put it this way. It's not an episode that I'm gonna remember everything that happened as soon as you tell me the name of it, like I will some of the episodes. But it is a nice episode, so. Yeah.
And it's nice to give Amethyst some focus, because naturally it really doesn't seem like she's going to be the focus of the rest of these episodes, because it isn't about her as much as it is about Pearl sharing the information, about Ruby and Sapphire, about Garnet, and of course, about the ever-present Steven.
Gosh, poor Steven. Nobody's focusing on this poor kid's well-being except for Amethyst. I feel like once they notice, they're gonna be like, oh no, we were accidentally neglectful.
Well, Steven can spend 5 minutes without everything being about him, all right? Steven
This
gets
is
a lot
true.
of focus all the time. But no,
Yeah.
I do think that it is kind of one of those things where, almost like at the end of what's the episode? Future Vision, where Garnet realizes that she messed up with him, but that I think that Garnet is going to be very, I don't know, almost embarrassed maybe, just that this whole thing happened when she should have been there for Steven.
Oh, I feel like she's definitely, when she gets back together, she's probably going to apologize. She probably would feel horrible about it. Unfortunately, though, she's not in existence, so she has absolutely no control over what happens. But I guarantee you, as soon as she gets back together, she's gonna be like, oh no, we messed up. We shouldn't have done that to our son. Gosh, this poor kid. Anything else to say about it, or?
Nope.
All right, well, so tomorrow's discussion is going to be over on Pie Guy's channel, and the episode for tomorrow is The Question, and then the episode for the next day is Maid of Honor, and that will be on my channel, so make sure to go subscribe to him, hit the bell icon so you know as soon as the video comes out, and we'll see you all guys in the next episode tomorrow over on Pie Guy's channel.
Bye.
Bye.